Authors Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Joyce Meyer Jones. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Embracing the Law of Attraction, Out of the Box, Into the Light. And I will say, Joyce was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business, Authors Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, you got to move it through Authors Press. You can find them at authorspress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure and such a delight to have Joyce here on the line, because her book we're going to be discussing is such an applicable book to really any day of life, but especially right now. I don't know about you guys, but I know, speaking from my own experience, listen, I'm always looking for ways that I can better myself, that I can grow and that I can develop. And I'll be the first to admit it, I'm not always the greatest at doing so. But I love the fact that we have Joyce here on the line, because her book that we're going to be discussing today, Embracing the Law of Attraction, is going to discuss just that. Guys, given what we're going through right now with this pandemic, there's a lot of adversity that we're experiencing across the board. And the levels to that adversity varies, of course, based upon the individual. And listen, Joyce is the expert on the matter. She's done the research. She's comprised the book together for us. And she's going to be able to articulate all the nuances in her book much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring her here on the line with us. Joyce, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I am excellent, and thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Well, listen, as I stated, this is going to be an education for myself as well as everybody else involved. Now, Joyce, before we jump into your book, let's hold off slightly. Start off with telling us a little bit more about yourself.
I am Joyce Meyer Jones, as you said, and I am truly embracing the law of attraction in my life, and have for about always the law of attraction is at work, but now I'm applying it positively. So I'm having fun in my life because I intend for myself to have fun.
Absolutely. Listen, when we talk about the law of attraction, it's about your perception, right? And what you're focusing on, it'll start to gravitate towards you. And you're talking about how you're just wanting to have fun. and I think when you have that positivity in the front of your mind, when that is your perception and that is all you focus on seeing, it's funny how the universe will just kind of get out of your way.
You are so right. Actually, the universe helps you to achieve anything that you want. And if you focus on what you don't want, unfortunately, that's what you get. So I've worked very hard trying to change my own thoughts so that a better life would come, and I would see the positivity in my life, and looking for joy and expecting joy to happen. It's really quite awesome.
Absolutely. Well, Joyce, listen, let's not hold off any longer. Embracing the Law of Attraction, Out of the Box, Into the Light. Tell us about your book.
My book is the accumulation of many thoughts I've had for many years, and before The Secret by Rhonda Burns came out and became very popular, I started looking at myself and realizing that my life needed some work, a lot of work. So I started with positive quotations, and then as I kept reading from the others that had learned before me, going way back to Socrates, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, and the current ones, like Rhonda Burns, that I could learn too. And even though I was an older woman, I decided to make the changes, and it's been a journey that I have thrived on. So my thoughts about all this helped me to get out of my own box of limitations and into the light of freedom, and freedom to be who I really am.
Fantastic. Joyce, as we continue on, let's go into the title. Now, of course, the first portion of the title, the main title of your book, Embracing the Law of Attraction, we understand, I mean, that's right there on the nose. We know exactly what we're, expecting to encounter. Now, the second title, the subtitle of the book, Out of the Box, Into the Light. I can assume the correlation, especially after hearing your synopsis, but you know what happens when you assume, Joyce, so I'm not going to do that to you. We have you here on the line. Really articulate for us the connection to your book with that subtitle, and then also really why you chose that to be the representation of your book.
Honestly, I had other subtitles, and over the years, I decided that needed to change. And so I was looking at this word, mediocrity, a decade ago or more, and kept thinking about it, and that I had chosen, evidently, mediocrity because of the way I think about myself. I had limited my possibilities. And so I realized that I had put myself in a box, and it's a box of limitations. And so I didn't know I was in a box until the shaft of light came through about thinking positively and changing your thoughts. Like Wayne Dyer was a master at that. He wrote many books about it. So I thought, wow, I'm in a box, and I got out of the box, and I was so excited to be out of the box. And months and months go down the road, and I'm still learning. The thoughts are accumulating, and then I realized I put myself in another box. I thought, what? And that's when I learned that you change your thoughts gradually about who you are and what you're capable of. You have to keep changing them, because otherwise you will never grow. So out of the box, into the light is what I've done. And if I did it, anybody can do it.
Guys, how often, and again, speaking from my own experience, but I'm sure many of you can relate, how often do we become complacent with living in that box, right? And as Joyce articulates, living in that mediocrity, right? Guys, well, listen, we're not born and we don't grow and develop to just be normal. First and foremost, what is normal? Who puts that definition on it? But, as she stated, listen, we're always growing and developing. She got herself out of one box and then later on found that she just put herself in another confined space. We're constantly developing. We're constantly growing, and we have to continue to remind ourselves and really continue to reanalyze that. And that's how we grow. And that's how we continue to develop. Joyce, that is absolutely beautiful. Now, moving on, let's take a step away from the book. I want to analyze the concept of inspiration. Now, of course, inspiration, as you know, can take many forms. So it's a multi-part question. Starting off with this book, Embracing the Law of Attraction. Now, we know really how this started really as a self-help narrative for yourself, right? You noticed you were in a position in life where you no longer wanted to be in that mediocrity. So you started to change your patterns of thinking. Now, what inspired you to write this book, and not just continuing on those lines of thinking, but really wanted to take it a step further and actually put the words to the page?
I think what really inspired me the most is, as a substitute teacher from kindergarten to 12th grade, I was seeing a lot of children that did not love themselves and kept themselves in a box, basically. And my goal, as little as I saw them, because it wasn't a daily thing, the goal was to help them think about loving themselves, because they could do anything they thought they could. And use the quote from Henry Ford, whether you think you can do a thing or you cannot, you're correct. And I would get them to think about it, because so many kids think they can't do it. And that's because they've already learned at a very early age not to believe in themselves. And that struck a chord with me, because that's where my own belief system started, was with my birth family. And I just really wanted to impact the world, because if we if we teach the children well, things will get better in the world because people will love themselves and love humanity and find connections in the world. And that's where my passion is, to save the little children who will grow up to be adults.
Absolutely. Continuing on this line of inspiration, really, as you just stated, you come from a background of education. So what inspired you to then switch gears, embark upon a creative journey, and become a writer?
Well, my experience with the kids is brief, but I kept working at it and smiling and acknowledging them and encouraging them. But it wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough to impact teenagers and young adults because I wasn't there often enough, and they didn't know if they could trust me or what. And right now, the kids are having a really difficult time, and unfortunately, many of them are taking their own lives because they can't see an end to what we are living right now. They don't have enough experience to know that this too shall pass, and everything will work out. It may take a while, but everything will work out. And then they forget that they are important. They forget that things will get better. They forget that they're worthy of great things and that they're lovable. And that's what I want my book to do, is to help those kids, those young adults, learn to love themselves and that life goes on.
Fantastic. Guys, again, here on the line with Joyce Meyer Jones. We're discussing her book, Embracing the Law of Attraction, Out of the Box into the Light. Now, Joyce, as we continue on, I don't know if you would categorize this book specifically for young adults. I mean, it's clearly something that can be applied to anyone, right? Whether they're adults, young adults, children, everybody can always grow and develop. Everybody can always learn and really better themselves. Now, specifically, as you stated, of course, young adults, they're on a huge transitional path, right, at a certain age. And a lot of times they don't know because the experiences haven't been fulfilled enough to really give them that wisdom. Now, a question for you, Joyce, is do you like to create books for young adults?
I love it. I love doing this because if I can make a difference in a young person's life, even one life, I have impacted the world. I love that they're searching for truth. They're searching for something to believe in. And I believe this book is one place that they can go to start looking at themselves and getting that deep love, not only for themselves, but for their creator.
Wonderfully put. Beautiful, Joyce. Listen, next question, more so of a curiosity for myself. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon this journey?
It was very interesting. While I was writing the book, I'd go to the library and find books that were right in front of me, kind of, I would say, like vibrating to get my attention. And it was exactly what I needed at that time. And so clearly there was another force working with me and for me that was bringing me to the information that I needed to put my thoughts into a thoughtful pattern to present to the world. The other thing is that my own growth happened, and I had to really look at myself deeply and see if I had put myself in another box. And in certain places, I had done that. I thought, oh, well, that's my experience, but it may not be other people's experience. So I was always in tune to myself and my own development that was going on simultaneously.
Absolutely. You know, Joyce, as we tie up this fantastic interview, and listen, all the information that you've been given thus far has been so profound, right? And we're so appreciative towards it. Now, you know, I'd love to know any tips that you can offer our listening audience, you know, maybe tips that you offer in the book. Now, of course, we don't want to go too much in depth with what is offered in the book, because guys, you know what you got to do. I mean, if you want to get all the tips that Joyce has to offer, there's no getting around it. Okay. You got to pick up your copy. But since we have you here on the line, just to give a little bit more of a teaser, Joyce, any tips that you offer in the book that you can maybe articulate to our listening audience now?
Well, there's so many things, but I think learn to listen to that wee small voice that's inside you. And people call it by different names, but get in tune with it because it will save your life. It saved my life many times, and you know, even to tell me to get off the freeway at a certain exit, but I don't want to get off at this exit. Get off this exit, and then find out later that 5 miles down the road there was a pile up of cars. So learn to trust your intuition.
Fantastic. That in and of itself speaks volumes. Guys, what more can be said? You know what you got to do. Pick up your copy of Embracing the Law of Attraction, Out of the Box, Into the Light by Joyce Meyer Jones. You surely will not be disappointed. As I stated to Joyce on the pre-screening call, what a wonderful time for a book of this magnitude, because, listen, it's a tough time for everybody involved, right? And we're spending a lot of time at home, but what a great time to take up a book of this magnitude that's filled with guidelines, filled with workbooks that you can track your progress step by step and really learn in how to get yourself on a better track of life and really truly grow and develop yourself. Listen, Joyce, thank you so much for the education. I am just blessed to have known you and blessed to have talked to you. We loved having you on here today. Again, thank you for being a guest.
Oh, and thank you so very much. You helped me a lot just by your demeanor and your attitude. It was extremely helpful. So thank you very much. And also to William Edwards of Office Press, because he has inspired me to be best. And that has been an awesome relationship for me.